When reading your book, I knew partial information about getting into medical school. Yet the hardship, the constant behavioral needs needed to successfully complete your studies in school, medical school, and finding the pathway needed to fulfill your goals is extraordinary. Yet it's ordinary amongst your peers. Can you explain the time frame it takes to get where you are?
I love how you put that. Because it's true. It's very true. So in the US, to become a physician, so that means being able to have MD after your name or DO. MD is for allopathic medicine. DO is osteopathic medicine. The main difference is the philosophy or approach to health and medicine, essentially. Both of them are doctors. Both of them can prescribe medications. If they choose to be surgeons, they can be, or, primary care physician. Again, it's just a difference in the approach to disease and management. So to become an MD in the United States, you need to complete university education. It can be either going straight to college or university from high school, or going to a JC, junior college, and for 2 years, and then transferring over to university, completing your bachelor's degree, completing prerequisites for medical school or osteopathic school. And then prerequisites are essentially all of the foundational science, physics, and some mathematics. So biology, chemistry, general chemistry, organic chemistry, physics, etc. Those are classes that are usually required to be completed before somebody can apply to medical school. The medical school application process generally takes about a year because there's a lot of moving pieces to it. So there's a primary application where an applicant would need to submit a personal statement. So basically answering questions like you're asking me, like why medicine?
Yeah.
Tell us about a hard time in your life, what you learned from it, etc.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about you and the activities that you've done and all of that. In putting in all of your activities, your clinical volunteer experiences, which usually are several hundred hours worth, your MCAT, which is the exam that needs to be taken before entering medical school, and then the secondary application. So more essays.
Okay.
and
What's
then,
what's
and
MCAT
then
what does it stand for, MCAT?
Medical Collegiate Admissions Test.
Okay. So that's
it's kind of like, it's like the graduate exam that you need to take to go to medical school. So, I mean, the MCAT can take anywhere from 3 months to a year to study for. Certain classes, usually the prerequisites will be very helpful to take the MCAT. So it can take up to a year to study for the MCAT. And then the application cycle, like I said, is a year, because after the primary application is submitted, and generally students apply to anywhere from, 20 to 30 to 50 to 60 plus medical schools, because it's a very competitive process. Each medical school may have anywhere from 100 to 200 spots available. And for those 100 to 200 spots, anywhere from 5 to 10,000 people are applying for those same spots. So for this reason, people usually apply broadly to multiple programs to increase their chance of getting accepted. So the primary application needs to be complete. The MCAT needs to be complete. Then secondary applications. So all the schools then send out applications, not to everybody. Everybody doesn't get it. So throughout the process, the application pool is essentially being whittled down. So everyone gets the chance to submit a primary. Some people get the secondary. Then some people get an invitation to interview. Prior to COVID, it was an in-person interview. So that would require travel to, anywhere in the country to interview for the full day. And then after interviews, it's essentially a waiting game where students are waiting to hear back from different programs to see whether or not they've been either accepted, waitlisted, or rejected. So it's a long process. It takes a year, but if an applicant's able to successfully go through that process, interview, and get accepted, then they'll be able to start medical school that following summer.
Yeah. I mean, you was very successful. Reading your book, you was very successful with UCLA. You know, I see this on television, like the prestige of UCLA. I mean, how was that?
It was a great experience. I'm very fortunate to have attended UCLA because it's a great institution. And when I was applying to university from high school, I went straight from high school to UCLA. I knew that if I chose well, I would be able to get a great education, even if I changed my major, because I wasn't sure what my major would be. But I knew that if I chose well and I was strategic about it, then even if I changed my major, I changed my mind about what I wanted to do or how I wanted to do it, I would still be in a good position. So I went to UCLA. It was, at first, actually, it was really tough for me because I came from high school and it was a great, high performing high school. I did well. And I came to UCLA, and then there was like hundreds of people in my classes. Yeah. And I thought to myself, oh man, they're going to think if I ask questions, it's going to sound dumb. And I just didn't feel confident. I can't talk to the professor because they're going to think this and that. And essentially I got in my own way. I got in my own head, and that affected my performance. I started off university. My first year was solid. I made the honor society from my grades. And then I started overloading my schedule with different activities and classes. I wasn't studying the way I needed to study. And it showed in my grades. I wasn't doing well. To draw like a mental picture for you, you can imagine a plane, right? It takes off. It takes off pretty good, and it's at a good spot. That's like my first year. And then second year, just crashing. So at that point when it was crashing, I had to have a moment where an epiphany, basically. And I said to myself, and I wrote this in my book, in the Pre-Med Survival Guide, I had to realize, what was I doing? Well, why was I here? Okay, why am I putting myself on this journey? Because it is difficult. The classes are competitive, and it can be very challenging when you are a first generation immigrant, first generation everything, and you're trying to figure out the process as you're going through the process. It can be very overwhelming. And I realized that if I didn't know what I was doing, why I was doing this, then I was never going to do well, because I needed to have that internal motivation at the front of my mind to be able to persevere, to be consistent, to not care or worry about what other people were thinking or how they were looking at me, so that I could focus and do what I was setting out to do. And once I realized that, then I said, okay, this is why I'm doing this. I want to be a physician for these reasons, to help my family, to uplift my community, to help other people who are like me, etc. And I realized that I really did actually want that. Then it was a matter of, okay, well, what's in my way? Found out I was in my own way. I took responsibility. For my actions in my life. And I realized that if I wanted it to go the way I wanted as best as possible, then I had to put in the work, even if it felt like it was more work than other people. And once I made that plan and I was committed, I executed that plan. And then since that point, I made the dean's list every quarter until I graduated, such that I graduated with a 3.95 GPA. And went on to, eventually go to medical school. Yeah. So that whole college experience was great because it was challenging in so many ways, but it was also helpful because it enabled me to look within myself to figure out what I wanted to do with my life.
Yo. I don't need a coach. I don't need advice.